So guys, we're almost 4 weeks into the ceasefire, and humanitarian agencies are saying that only half of the food required is actually entering into Gaza. And overall, aid levels are just a quarter to a third of what was actually being expected. And we all know that the genocide completely devastated Gaza's infrastructure. Many homes have been destroyed, tens of thousands of people have been displaced. Of course, we have winter fast approaching, with civilians sleeping in tents that have been destroyed. And also we know that there's definitely going to be a lack of shelters and heating. And it's obvious, this ceasefire does not solve the humanitarian catastrophe. Not only is there physical devastation, but there is an ongoing blockade, and restrictions on access remains a huge obstacle. And let's be honest guys, the international community is not doing enough to pressure Israel to let the food and the supplies into Gaza. I'm going to pull up an interesting article from Reuters to sort of show you guys how bad this really is. So this is what I was reading earlier on. Not enough tents, food reaching Gaza as winter comes, aid agencies say. So, it says far too little aid is reaching Gaza nearly 4 weeks after a ceasefire. As hunger persists with winter approaching, and old tents start to fray following Israel's devastating 2-year offensive. The truce was meant to unleash a torrent of aid across the tiny, crowded enclave where famine was confirmed in August, and where almost all the 2.3 million inhabitants have lost their homes to Israeli bombardment. However, only half the needed amount of food is actually coming in. An umbrella group of Palestinian agencies said overall aid volumes were between a quarter and a third of the expected amount. Israel says that it is fulfilling its obligations under the ceasefire agreement, which calls for an average of 600 trucks of supplies into Gaza per day. It blames Hamas fighters for any food shortages, accusing them of stealing food aid before it can be distributed, which obviously Hamas has denied. Now, Gaza's local administration, long controlled by Hamas, I don't know why they needed to add that part in there, says that most trucks are still not reaching their destinations due to Israeli restrictions, and only about 145 per day are actually delivering the supplies in. Now, the United Nations, which earlier in the genocide, not the war, the genocide, published daily figures on aid trucks crossing into Gaza. And it's no longer giving those figures routinely. So, tents have been completely worn out. It is dire. There's no proper tents or proper water or proper food or proper money, said Manal Salim, who's 52, and he lives in a tent in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Oh, sorry, it's a woman. And that she says it is completely worn out, and she fears that it will not last throughout the winter. Now, the ceasefire and greater flow of aid since mid-October has brought some improvements, said the United Nations Humanitarian Agency, OCHA. Last week, the OCHA said a tenth of children screened in Gaza were still acutely malnourished, down from 14% in September, with over 1,000 showing the most severe form of malnutrition. Half of families in Gaza have reported increased access to food, especially in the south, as more aid and commercial supplies entered after the truce, and households were eating on average 2 meals a day, up from 1 in July, according to the OCHA. So we can see this is a displaced Palestinian woman. She shows a torn tent amid the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. This was taken on November the 4th, so it was only yesterday. Look at the conditions that they're living in, guys. It's insane. More pictures from the tent. Look all the holes in the roof. Imagine all of the rain coming in. Imagine how cold it is. Like, these Israeli demons they're demons. Like, how can they leave people in these conditions? Just some more images of more Palestinians that are sheltering in tents. I mean, half of their homes have been destroyed, guys. Remember this. Like, the majority of, probably about 90% of the people that are living in Gaza don't have a home anymore. This is their home. This is their home for the foreseeable future. And this is how they're living. Imagine, like, living there in the winter, guys. Like, this is really sad. Like, imagine actually having to be a Palestinian in the winter. Let me put it on full screen quickly. Imagine being a Palestinian living in Gaza in the winter, and this is how you have to survive. You're living in a tent. You're not knowing if the ceasefire is going to be breached, and if bombs are going to strike and wipe everyone out. If they make it through there, like if they're not bombed or anything like that, then there's also the heating problem. There's no heating, obviously. There's no food, no supplies. So, have you ever been sitting there, guys? I'm not sure if you've ever been out before, like in the night time, and you haven't eaten all day, so you're feeling like really, dehydrated. You need a drink of water, and you're freezing cold. I mean, imagine living like this every single day. Like, they don't have a choice. They have to live like this. Like, it's honestly fucked up what Israel has done to them, honestly. And this is where the ceasefire doesn't really matter, because ceasefire or not, this is how they've got to live now for the foreseeable future. I can only pray that, you know, somebody can, you know, give them funding to rebuild their homes. Somebody can just make a miracle happen, really. I mean, it's honestly sad that anyone has to live like this. And it's not even like it's a man-made disaster. It's not like an earthquake hit. It's not like, you know, like a tornado came through and wiped everyone out. These were Israeli terrorists dropping hundreds of thousands of bombs on residential areas on purpose. And the whole world basically sat there silently and did nothing. But yeah, it's really fucked up. It's really fucked up. Just some more images here. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. So the OCHE, the lady from the OCHA, sorry, said there is still a sharp divide between the south and the north where conditions remain far worse. So Abir Itifa, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, the senior spokesperson for the WFP, described the situation as a race against time. They said, "We need full access. We need everything to be moving fast. The winter months are coming. People are still suffering from hunger, and the needs are overwhelming." Now, since the ceasefire, the agency has brought in 20,000 metric tons of food assistance, which is roughly about half the amount needed to meet people's needs. And it's also opened 44 out of a targeted 145 distribution sites. The variety of food needed to ward off malnutrition is also lacking, she added. The majority of households that we've spoken to are only consuming cereals, pulses, dry food rations, which people cannot survive on for a long time. Meat, eggs, vegetables, fruits are all being consumed extremely rarely. A continuing lack of fuel, including cooking gas, is also hampering nutrition efforts. I mean, that's what you guys forget about as well. Like, even like simple things like gas. You know, how are they gonna cook? You know, no electricity. How are they gonna? They can't use like an electric oven like we can. They haven't got it anyway. But even if they did, like, where are they gonna put the stuff? They're gonna have to, you know, use campfires and God knows whatever else. It's so heartbreaking. But yeah, as I was saying, a continuing lack of fuel, including cooking gas, is also hampering nutrition efforts. And over 60% of Gazans, or Palestinians I like to call them, not Gazans, are cooking using burning waste, said the OCHA, adding to health risks. Now, with winter approaching, Palestinians need shelter. Tents are wearing thin. Buildings that survive the military onslaught are often open to the weather or unstable and dangerous. Buildings that survive the military onslaught are often open to the weather or unstable. Oh, okay. I thought it said that they're open. Yeah, so they're open, but they're, you know, in bad conditions. They're not safe, basically. They're not safe. We're coming into winter soon. Rainwater and possible floods, as well as potential diseases because of the hundreds of tons of garbage near populated areas. This is what Amjad al-Shawar, the head of the Palestinian agencies that liaise with the UN, said. He said, only 25 to 30% of the amount of aid expected into Gaza has entered so far. The living conditions are unimaginable, said Shaina Lowe, spokesperson for the Norwegian Refugee Council, which leads a group of agencies working on the lack of shelter in Gaza. The NRC estimates that 1.5 million people need shelter in Gaza, but large volumes of tents, tarpaulins and related aid is still waiting to come in. Awaiting, of course, Israeli approval. But yeah, that's pretty much it from the Reuters article. I mean, I don't know, guys. What do you think? Do you think the ceasefire is actually going to, you know, is it really changed a lot for an average Palestinian living in Gaza? They're still living under occupation. They're still in a humanitarian catastrophe. You know, there's no food, there's no water, there's no electricity, there's no gas. There's no basic, you know, things that humans need to survive in Gaza. They don't have their homes. They're sleeping in tents. Some of them are probably sleeping on the streets. Some of them probably don't even have tents. So, you know, fair enough, there might be a temporary ceasefire, because we all know it's been temporary. This has been going on for 80 plus years. And, yeah, so the bombing might have temporarily stopped, but is that actually going to really change anything for a Palestinian? Yeah, sure, they might have a slight, you know, better chance of surviving, but, you know, are they really living, or are they just breathing? Because at this stage, I wouldn't say that they're living at all. They're not living a good life. They're just breathing, you know, waiting to see what, you know, next disaster is going to be around the corner. But yeah, it's really heartbreaking. I pray for all the Palestinian people, And I really do hope that this can get, you know, properly solved ASAP. Someone can come in and fix this. Someone can just do something, you know, to help these poor innocent Palestinians out. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video. Remember to drop a like and comment and subscribe, and let me know in the comments, where do you think, you know, what's next for the Palestinians really? Where do they go from here? But yeah, thanks for watching.